Hey, hey, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? No? Louder? Okay. Because I could probably get away without the microphone, but I'm probably going to have to end up whispering. So if I'm too loud or soft, just yell at me. Looks like that last pulse of folks has come in, so we're going to get going tonight. Try to stay as much on time as we can. My name is Chris Matrick. I feel like we're going to the high school dance here. My name is Chris Matrick. I'm the district ranger for the Rochester and Middlebury Ranger Districts on the Green Mountain National Forest, and I'm the responsible official for the Telephone Gap Integrated Resource Project. I apologize for the weather. I had ordered 45 and clear. Clearly, I don't have an in with the weatherman, so I apologize about that. And so glad that so many of you were able to make it here this evening. So just getting into why we invited you here tonight is definitely to ask questions and clarifications about the Telephone Gap proposal that was put out with the scoping notice. So clarifying any questions you might have about that to enable you to provide us comments on the proposal as written comments as part of our scoping period. So fully understand what we're proposing so you can provide those comments. And then the objective is tonight isn't for you to express your support or opposition to the project. It's to kind of seek clarification. What don't you understand about it? What might be confusing about it to you? We won't be taking verbal comments, so you won't be able to come up to any of us and say, I would like to comment. We have comment forms at each one of the tables that you could write the comments out and then deposit them over there at the checkout table on your way out. Or you can follow the instructions that were in the scoping notice to provide those electronic or written comments. You can call us at the office if you like, on Monday or tomorrow if you wanted to provide comments, but we really encourage you to provide written comments because otherwise you're left up to us interpreting what we think you're saying to us over the phone. So written comments are always the best. So for you folks online out there tonight, I got some notes here that I want to make sure that I'm not missing out on. So there's some separate Teams links that are going to be posted in the chat for each one of our resource tables for later in the night, but we are having some internet connectivity issues here that we tested it out last week and it was fine, but does seem to be some issue with the school's internet tonight, so it might be a little bit spotty. We're doing the best that we can. We do have PEG TV here who is recording the event, and then it will be posted on the YouTube site, and we'll share that information with you for everybody in the room and everybody who's virtually online. So if you're online, listen to our introductory presentation right now, and then if we can make it happen with the internet service that we have, we're going to either have you be able to view each table or walk you around to each one of the resource tables so that you can listen in to the conversation. And you can, in the chat, you can place any specific questions that you might have about the proposal. Or you could send them, tomorrow directly to Jay Strand, who's standing over here. There's his email address. That's kind of peppered throughout the presentation tonight. Jay's the project contact for the Telephone Gap project. And then we'll provide you responses to those questions that are posted in the chat on the virtual platform that we're trying to use this evening. And we'll get them back to you as soon as possible. Don't forget to put your email address so we know who to send it back to. And is that me? No. And if I'm going too fast, tell me to slow down. I am a fast-talking New Englander. So how did we know what to include in the proposal? Thank you, Jay. So here is the project area. It's 72,253 acres in size. The overall project area, that's about 35,489 acres of federal land. That includes in the process of acquiring South Pond Tract, which is that pink colored piece there, and the remainder is a combination of town, state, and private lands. The project area includes towns in the towns of Brandon, Chittenden. You can read them there: Goshen, Killington, Mendon, Pittsfield. But the vast majority of the project area is in Chittenden, Killington, and Pittsfield, and Mendon. Don't want to leave Mendon out. So how did we know what to put in the project area? So we started in 2019 where our resource specialist undertook the initial landscape assessment. That's the document on the right. That involved an inventory by those resource specialists for the resource area, identifying what the current condition of that resource was in the project area. And then using the broad lens of our forest plan and the desired future condition identified in that forest plan, they kind of zoomed into the project area to display, you know, what in the Telephone Gap project area, what are the resources and what are the actions that we can take to move this project area towards that desired future condition identified in the forest plan, and the ways that we would bridge that gap, the gap between the existing condition that's currently on the landscape and that desired future condition identified in the forest plan. So what have we, we published that in 2021, that landscape assessment. What have we done since then? Well, we engaged with the public and we engaged with some, our sister 8 federal agencies and our counterparts with the state, and we entered that public engagement phase. And we continued all along the way to keep collecting resource inventory as well. We had a kickoff meeting, public meeting, and then we had individual resource meetings on the topic areas that you see up there, and then we followed that up with field trips in support of timber ecology and roads, carbon, wildlife and recreation, and visuals. And then we did work with the National Wild Turkey Federation to reach out to private landowners in the project area to try to engage about what complementary actions might be taken on private land that would be that would go along with the projects and proposals that were part of our that were identified in the landscape assessment. And now I'm going to pass it over to Jay, and he's going to take us through the rest of the introductory presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yep, like Chris mentioned, I'm Jay Strand. I am the forest planner and the environmental coordinator. My main job on the forest is to ensure that everything that we do as a federal agency complies with all federal laws, regulations, and policies. Sounds like a fun job, right? So that's what I do, and I also happen to be the team leader for this project, at least from this stage forward. I'll be coordinating the specialists to put their pencil to the paper, basically, to do their environmental effects that will be documented in the environmental assessment. So where we're at right now, presently, 2023, today, is to sort of kick off our public involvement process in a formal manner, which initiates the NEPA process. And we call that scoping, and really all that means, and that's a formal way of saying that we're trying to narrow the focus of what it is that we want to try to disclose for environmental effects to the resources that we would have concern about based on your public comments, as well as our own resource specialists on our interdisciplinary team who are assigned to this project. So what do we do with this information, and what does NEPA require us to do? We have to disclose environmental effects. So just like any other federal agency, the Forest Service has to disclose the environmental effects. We have to consider them and disclose them for any actions that we take that may disturb the ground out there on the forest. And together with that, we inform you as the public. So those are the twin aims of NEPA. In a nutshell, we have to consider and disclose effects, and we have to inform you as a member of the public. That's a requirement of NEPA. But just as important, we have to inform Chris Matrick. He's the responsible official who will be making the final decision at the end of the day on what to implement, or if anything, out of this project on the ground after the decision is signed. So we inform you and we inform Chris. So we initiated the scoping process for this project on January 27th, a few weeks ago. You may have received an email from me, and now you have a face to go with that email. And what it was is it had this cover letter attached to that email. We have copies of this up at the front if you didn't get one, if you weren't on our mailing list. And basically, it is kicking off our NEPA process for this project. The main thing that that cover letter talks about and refers to is the notice of proposed action and opportunity for comment. So there's two versions of it. There's an executive summary version and a detailed version. They're both on our website. And do not rely on the executive summary version of our proposed action alone, because it's just boiled down to the brass tacks. You want to look at the more detailed version to get all the information that may be of interest to you. So look at the executive summary first. You can kind of bruise through it and see what may interest you. And then you can go to the fuller version and get more detail. The detailed version is quite long, and it's very heavy and dense with information. And the reason is because we wanted to make sure that you had as much detail as possible to understand what it is that we're proposing within the project area. So like I mentioned, it's available on our website. It was linked in the cover letter, and it also was linked, I believe, on the email. You can get any of this information if you don't have access to it or you didn't receive it, either copies up at the front if you didn't get one as you walked in, or contact me directly and I'll get it to you as soon as we possibly can. But this is just a snapshot of what our webpage looks like. And in the scoping folder on that website is all the information, hopefully, that you'll need to base your comments on. You also are able to obtain hard copies and look at hard copies, because some people either don't have internet access or have really bad internet connectivity, like we are here tonight. And so we have given a complete package of the scoping documents, the proposed action, the maps, and the tables in three town offices: Chittenden, Mendon, and Killington. And I believe, Chris, you're going to drop one off at Pittsfield as well?
Yeah, I'm going to drop one at Pittsfield,
Okay.
maybe even tomorrow.
Yep. And we also have one, of course, in our district office in Rochester, which is about 2 miles north of the village on Route 100. Yeah. So what you'll find on the website, or the hard copy, whichever you end up looking at, is the main notice of opportunity for comment, which has the complete details, like I said, of the proposed action, but it also has associated maps. There's 4 maps. We have copies of all those maps at each of the resource tables, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And also of importance to point out is that there's Appendix C treatment tables that specify compartment by stand, and stands are individual units within the project area where we are proposing treatments. So there's treatment tables for all of the activities that we're proposing as part of the proposed action scoping document. And of course, maybe one of the most important things to realize here is that on page 2 of that cover letter that was part of the email, which is also on the table, has very specific directions on how to submit comments. We also, as associated with the proposed action, which is available on our internet, is a story map. And this basically is just a visual presentation of our narrative, our verbal or written narrative of the proposed action. It's meant to supplement it. It's not meant to exactly replicate it. So don't rely on the story map to base your comments. Go to the actual narrative that's written down in that detailed proposed action. But this is really a great tool that you can look at visually, and you can zoom in on various parts of the project area, and it has as much detail as each individual forested stand that, again, is highlighted in the treatment tables, okay? So you can cross-reference it, but if you click on that stand, when you zoom in on it, it'll tell you detailed information about what's being proposed there, how many acres it is, and some other information that may be important for you to know. So it's a great additive supplemental tool that you can access. So why do we invite your comments in the first place, you may be asking? So we really, really want to hear what you have to say about what we're proposing. We've worked really hard over the course of the last 3 years, collecting the information on the ground, visiting forested stands, engaging with the public. We've had many virtual meetings. We've had many in-the-field meetings, in-person meetings. And so basically now that we've proposed the action based on all that interaction and collective information, what you think about what it is that we're proposing. So the main thing we want to hear from you if you have any issues of what we're proposing. And what I mean by issues are concern with some relative resource that may be impacted by any component of the proposed action. We also can use your comments to determine possible modifications to the proposed action itself. or develop mitigative or protective measures associated with the resource that you may express concern with. We also could use your issues, your comments, to determine any alternatives to the proposed action that we would include in the environmental assessment that would address some major issue of concern, so that we can see the different trade-offs that that alternative might have with the proposed action. It really helps us focus our environmental effects on issues of meaningful concern that are important to you. That's what this is all about. We want to focus the environmental analysis and the assessment that will be meaningful to you. So that's why we want to hear from you. And of course, then we take all this and we document it in the environmental assessment. So we've talked about how to submit comments a little bit, but we strongly encourage you to put them in writing. It's not an absolute requirement. It's not like a regulation or law that we would reject a verbal comment. But like Chris mentioned, oftentimes we will hear a verbal comment over the phone or even in person, and we'll do our best to capture it. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to get it wrong. And we may miss something. It's so much better for you to put it in writing, give it some thought, and then if we have a problem figuring out what it is that you're saying, we can follow up with you. So that's why we'd like to hear from you in a written format rather than verbally. So you can mail it to our office in Rochester. We actually still have a fax machine in our office, so you can fax it to us. You can send it to us electronically, and I'll show you in a minute how you can do that. Or you can even hand deliver it to our office in person during business hours, 8 through 4:30 at our office, Monday through Friday at our office in Rochester. The end of the comment period is midnight on, actually 11:59 if you went right to the regulations, 11:59 on Monday, March 13th. Comments are most useful to us if they're specific to the proposed action. So you can do whatever you'd like in your written comments, but if there's something outside of the project area or have nothing to do with the proposed action, we're not going to be able to address it in this analysis process. Try and keep them specific to something relative to the proposed action. Identify a concern related to a resource effect from the proposed activity. We call this the cause and effect issue statement. So the cause is some component of the proposed action, and the effect is a consequence of that action, that concern that you have with that resource. That's what we want to hear from you. And it's really helpful for you to include supporting reasons for your concern. Now, you don't have to provide scientific literature, although that is also welcome, but just some sort of rationale or justification for why you think there's an issue of concern with a resource as a result of some part of our proposed action. And you should include your name and contact information. If you can submit your comments anonymously, we certainly will accept them and we certainly will consider them. But if you don't include your name and your contact information, it won't allow you to have what we call objection standing at the end of the analysis process, which I'll talk about here at the very end. So if you want to have that ability to have objection standing, you must include your name and your contact information. This is the online commenting form. If you click on the hyperlink, if you have the letter electronically, we have the drawn out, written out version of that hyperlink at the front desk. But this is the best way for us to obtain your comments. And it's really easy for you to go in there. You can either fill it out here in the box, just type it in there. And you can also, down here, I know you can't read that, but if you get online, you'll see that you can actually upload a Word document or a PDF document or even scientific literature PDF documents to this website commenting form. And the really great thing about putting your comments in here is that it goes into what we call a reading room. And if you go into our website for this project, to the right side on the menu, there is a reading room, and you can read all the comments that are coming in real time. And you won't have to ask them from us to send them to you. They're available for you to read as they come in. I think the last time I looked was this morning. There's already 150 comments in there. So you can go check it out. So where do we go from here? We want to complete what we're going to call the preliminary environmental assessment. So some people call it a draft environmental assessment. We're going to call it a preliminary environmental assessment, but based on the comments that we receive, we're going to focus our effects analysis on what we feel is important based on your input and our resource specialists' input on what they feel is important, and we'll document it in an environmental assessment. It may have an alternative included in detail along with the proposed action. It depends on the issues that we receive through public comments. That preliminary environmental assessment should be done by June, which will kick off another 30-day public comment period. This is a formal one, which is regulated by our administrative review process. And what it means is that there's a 30-day comment period that's triggered by a publication of a legal notice in the Rutland Herald that you're able to submit yet again more comments based on how you feel we've disclosed environmental effects, or if there's some other issue that pops up that you hadn't considered before or didn't realize based on the information that you're reading now. And based on that input, we'll complete a final environmental assessment. We may make changes to it. We may even add another alternative. It all depends. Depending on what we get, we'll finalize the environmental assessment and we'll issue a draft decision notice. That'll happen sometime in the fall. And that'll trigger a 45-day objection period. This is the administrative review process. It's required by our regulations. It allows you to be able to object to something that you feel we didn't get right. All right? This is your opportunity to check us to make sure we got it right. And if we get objections, we'll have a review period, and any instructions that come out of the review team that looks at that, and it's independent of anybody in this room who works on this document. It's done by a consortium of other Forest Service staff from other national forests in Region 9, which is the eastern region. They review it independently and objectively, and they'll give, if there's anything of serious concern from their perspective, they will let Chris know that he has to address those before he can sign the final decision notice, which we will hope will happen by the end of 2023, which will put us in a place to potentially, if there's a decision that he approves that has actions in it, to be able to start implementing it in early 2024 and beyond. We think, as it stands right now, as the proposed action with all of what we're proposing, could take anywhere from 7 or more years to complete. So it's a pretty good long time that we'll be implementing if we get to this stage. So that brings us to our open house format, which brings us here tonight, which is the main event basically as soon as we get done talking with you here during this presentation. And so as soon as we break up here, we have 5 resource tables set up all around the room. And this is your chance to ask the resource specialist responsible for that particular resource discipline questions about the component of the proposed action that's relative to that resource area. Okay, so ask questions and seek clarification. That's what tonight's all about. These are the 5 resource tables that we have set up. Timber and forest ecology will be over here. James Donahue, our silviculturist, our forest silviculturist, and Suzanne Gifford, who's our forest ecologist, will be staffing that table. Soil, wetlands, water, and botany will be right here. We have John McCann, who's our forest hydrologist, wherever. There he is right here. And Mary Beth Deller, who is our botanist. She'll also be available to talk about non-native invasive plants too, right, Mary Beth? And then we have a wildlife and fire table right here. Jeremy Mears, our wildlife biologist, will be staffing that along with our fire management officer, Marty Knight, right here. They'll be sitting right here to talk about wildlife, including threatened and endangered species, and fire ecology. And then we have the recreation, visual, special uses, transportation, infrastructure, and heritage table. That's the alphabet soup table. They'll be right over here. Phil McCaskill will be talking about the recreation visuals, and he also will be able to share about special uses. There's 2 special uses components to this proposed action. Our special use coordinator couldn't make it tonight, so he's going to cover that base for us. And then we've got transportation and infrastructure. That's roads and engineering. We have Dave Donahue over here. and heritage and cultural resources. We have our forest archaeologist here, Karen Butcher, and Sarah Skinner to also help her out on that end. And last but not least, I'll be over in that far table talking about if you have any questions about the forest plan or the NEPA process in general or specifically, I'll be over there to answer all those types of questions. So that brings a turnaround back to you guys. I just want to make sure that it's clear what the rest of the evening's all about, or if you have any questions about what we've presented so far. Yes?
Hey Jay, just thank you for your time tonight. Real quick question about the process for this project. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. If someone does not submit a comment during the project proposal comment period, will they be allowed to submit comments later on during the EA comments? Because I know in the early successional, if you didn't comment early on, you could not comment later. Does that change, or is that going to be the same?
Yeah, for this project, to talk about this project, you don't have to comment during both comment periods to have the objection standing.
Okay.
You can comment on this during this comment period, this 45-day comment period, and you don't have to comment during the 30-day comment period coming up in June to have objection standing, or vice versa.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for doing this. Will we have access to the data that your specialists use to inform this plan?
Yes, you can request that information and we can provide it. So you will just need to contact me and I can get you to the right person, or even better yet, we have contact sheets at all the resource tables and up front with everybody who's on what we call the interdisciplinary team, and it has the whole smorgasbord of resource specialists on there with their contact information. You can contact them directly. And yes, we can make that available to you.
What was the question?
The question was, would you all be able to have access to the background information and data and supporting documents that is being used not only for developing the proposed action, but also for the basis of the environmental effects? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Question, you were saying earlier that we can do written comments for the tables that will also be submitted.
I'm sorry?
You can also, you said we can do written comments here also?
Yes.
At the end?
Yeah, you absolutely can. We have forms at all the tables. Just write in all the pertinent information. The main thing is your name and contact, right? And then on the back is to write your written comment. We have pens available, and you can drop it in the box on your way out. Yep. Or you can take it home with you and think about it. You can even submit written comments here, go home and submit more comments, because you have a whole month before the end of the comment period. So, yeah.
Kind of basketball.
Yeah, yes?
I'm sorry because we got here a little bit late, and so the framing of this project itself, you may have done at the beginning of your presentation, but I'm wondering about how often you all do a project plan of this scope in our area, and when was the last time that you did a major timber management project in the telephone gap?
Oh, in this particular area?
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, how often do we do a project of this magnitude within this project area? So, in other words, when was the last time we did a project of this magnitude in this area? I don't believe we've ever done a project of this magnitude in this area. There's been some minor activity within the project area boundaries, a minimal amount of timber harvesting, but most of the activity that's taken place within the project area proper, within those boundaries, has been recreation oriented. Trails, construction and maintenance, basically.
And it would be another X years until you all were proposing something again here.
Yes.
What's the X?
The X years, we'll be implementing probably, if we went through with the project as it's currently proposed, it's probably would take at least 7 to 10 years for completion, so it's going to be at least 10 years before we re-enter it. Normally, we don't re-enter an area probably on a 15 to 20 year basis.
The last timber management, there's ongoing small projects that happen all the time, trails, recreation, even some small timber, but the last timber sales were in the 80s and 90s, 95 through 2000.
Yeah, and there's also, just to mention, there's quite a few acres, and I don't know right off the top of my head, that were acquired from, gosh, I can't remember who it was now. Stanley Tool, thank you. We acquired quite a bit of land from them. So if you look at a Forest Service map from 25 years ago, about half of the project area that currently is in National Forest System lands wasn't in National Forest System lands then. So. Yes, sir.
How was the decision made to allow harvesting of trees in old growth and late successional forests?
Okay, well, that's a question that you can ask over here at this table, but
Get it out there.
actually, what's that?
Get it out there.
I'll get it out there. I'll put it out there right now, though. We are not proposing any harvesting of any old growth forest in this project. There's no stands of timber that are being designated or fall within the category to be defined as old growth. And there's mature and old trees for sure, but no designated old growth the way it's defined in our forest plan. And you can ask more specific questions about that at the forest ecology table, right back here behind me. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, can you refer us to a project of this magnitude that has been done in a roughly equivalent area?
Oh, anywhere on the National Forest?
I would say in the northeastern forest.
Okay, well, I'll just keep it specific to the Green Mountain National Forest. Since 2006, I believe this would be the 5th project of this magnitude that we proposed. And all 4 of the previous ones are in the process of being implemented or have been completely implemented. So it's the 5th integrated resource project of this size that we've proposed and or implemented on the forest.
Yes, it would be helpful to be able to go and see what some of those look like after a decade or 2 of having been.
I agree 100%. Yeah. That's-
County Refuge, take it right up.
What's that?
County Refuge.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I think she's looking for a specific example.
Yeah, yeah.
A space she can go to look at it.
What's the question?
There's plenty of places that you can go look at, but I'm not prepared to really tell you exactly where to go right now. That would be a question perhaps you could run by our silviculturist or even me over here at the forest planning table. I'll be over there.
Or you post it so that it would be available.
Yes.
The question was, is there a place that you could go to look at some place where there has been forest management of the type being proposed here that's happened in the past as kind of a reference to see what it would look like at some point in the future?
It's a great suggestion. Yes.
I'd like to make sure it's possible that the options you look at in the environmental assessment would include a calculation of carbon sequestration so that we could have a sense of how these would impact climate change, something I'm really concerned about for my son and grandson.
Yep. There will be.
It's not in the scoping now.
It's not in the scoping document. The scoping document is the proposed action, the sequestration, the impacts to the carbon cycle, all the potential impacts to any resource will be in the environmental assessment. So that's what you're speaking to,
Yeah.
and there will be. Specific to sequestration and carbon, for sure. Yes?
Yeah, could you explain why the private sector lands are in the whole project area? Understand the Forest Service has jurisdiction of its own, but why is private?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, I'm sure there's probably, can you hear me okay? I forgot about the microphone.
Could you repeat their questions?
Okay, that's what you're having a hard time with. But can you hear me okay? Because I can. Okay.
Use the mic.
Yeah, okay, good idea. I'm just trying to keep it from ringing back at me. The question was, why does the project area include private land? Because you're only doing activities on National Forest land. The answer is that we like to use natural geographic areas, usually involving sub-watershed boundaries, because there's interconnectivity of some of the resources that could be impacted as a result of our activities. The best example that I could give you is string courses. They run through national forest lands. There could be impact to those resources, and they run across private lands. So we'd like to include that for what we call indirect or cumulative effects in our analysis. But also, we were envisioning working with private landowners within the project area, for those landowners who would be interested in also doing activities that would supplement or complement what we are doing. And that's why Chris had mentioned earlier that the fall of 2021, we actually tried to have a landowner workshop for that very purpose. It wasn't very successful as far as attendance, because it was within the heart of the pandemic, basically, and we didn't get any in-person participation. But that was the reason why we were trying to include that land. So don't be alarmed. Just because your land is in the project area doesn't mean we're proposing anything in there. But we want you to be aware that there may be something going on adjacent or very close to your property, if you do own property within the project area. Yes?
Once the project is approved, is there a process to amend it if new thoughts come out, if new data comes out, if thoughts of climate change over the next 7 to 10 years, the proposed project to take?
Yes. So the question is there any way to amend or modify or do anything different once a decision is made, let's say 3 to 5 years down into the future, and some new information comes to our knowledge that would change or reflect any need for change on the ground? The question is absolutely yes. We're constantly having to review new information, new circumstances that may occur, new species may become endangered or threatened, new sensitive species might be putting onto our list that we have to monitor. Those kind of things we look at all the time, and if something comes up that we feel is going to affect what we're doing on the ground, or vice versa, what we're doing on the ground would affect that new species, whatever it may be, we will modify accordingly, and we'll review it. Yeah, good question. Yes?
Regarding the carbon sequestration comment and then the environmental assessment document, isn't the timing on that environmental assessment document very close to the final implementation?
The final environmental assessment will be done in the fall of 2023. The decision will be by the end of 2023, and we can begin implementing immediately after the decision is signed.
Right, but what I meant was, so there's no chance of seeing those numbers before that document?
Which numbers are you referring to?
The carbon sequestration?
Yeah, you'd be able to see them in the environmental assessment.
Between the draft and the final.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the numbers between the draft, the preliminary environmental assessment, and the final environmental assessment?
So it will show up in the preliminary environmental assessment?
There will be numbers in the preliminary environmental assessment. You will have a chance to review that. If you don't think we have it right, or we're missing something, that's your chance to point it out to us, and then we can consider changing, modifying, or adding to it in the final environmental assessment. Sorry, I misunderstood your question.
There's a question right here, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe that you said that there were no old growth proposed stands in this project, that there were mature and some old trees in this project. Can you tell me what the Forest Service criteria is for old growth, please?
It's a question for the ecology table.
Yeah, I think it's best for Suzanne to answer that question at the ecology table. That's why she's here. I am not able to answer that directly right now because I don't have the expertise and knowledge to do it justice, but she does.
Right over here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, though.
So we're bumping up right up against our time. So I'm going to get you all on the floor.
If you have any other general questions about the project, proposed action, the NEPA process, the forest plan, that a lot of the activity is based on, because a lot of what's in the forest plan provides us gives us the kind of like the basis for what we're doing on the ground. You can come over and talk to me. Yes, one more question?
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, and I think it's great that there's so many opportunities for people to weigh in. But I'm wondering, why isn't this something that the public has a chance to vote on?
To vote on? Yeah, so the question is, why doesn't appreciate the opportunity to comment, why isn't there an opportunity to vote on it? So the National Environmental Policy Act isn't meant to be a voting process. So it's not meant to be like, we count so many folks who are opposed to it versus who might be against it, just for example. It's not like there's more people who oppose it than who might be for it. That's not the way that the Environmental Policy Act really works. We're disclosing the environmental impacts from our actions so that you understand what those impacts are, but especially also so Chris understands what the ramifications or consequences may be for his final decision. So it's basically, we want to look before we jump. Make sure that it's a reasoned and well justified and has the basis for his decision that's backed up by scientific literature, the best available science that our specialists can provide in their effects disclosure. So it's not a vote. The only way that I could recommend that you would be able to exercise your vote would be to vote, for your local representatives or your congressional staff, your congressional representatives in Washington. Yeah, I mean, I know it seems like maybe a wishy-washy answer, but the NEPA process is not a voting process.
The federal acts that govern the Forest Service processes are not based on votes. I mean, the vote would be, as Jay said, you would elect congressmen that would congressmen and senators would choose to adjust the acts that govern our policies and how we operate. There's another question by this gentleman up here too, right in the back row.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that we have this great knowledgeable staff that's put all this work into this, and that we're going to be following the science of this plan. I felt like on the Manchester District plan, that was kind of bridged after the fact by some politicized disruption, shall we say. Can we be assured that when this plan is finalized, it will be bulletproof enough that we won't see that type of disruption to the plan? And that any disruption that does come to the plan down the road will be based on science, not on opinion. I think you maybe already have answered that.
Yeah, did everybody hear that question? No. So basically what he's asking is there any way for us to guarantee that the final decision, whatever that may be, based in science, based on our best effects analysis from our resource specialists, isn't going to get politicized and changed for some other political reason after the decision is made? The answer is, we can't guarantee that. There's no way to know for sure exactly what will happen politically or socially as a result of Chris's final decision, and we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it. All that we can do right now is follow the law, and the law requires us to do just what I pointed up here, to follow the twin aims of NEPA, which is to consider and disclose the environmental effects based on our best scientific information from all the resource specialists who are working on this project, and inform you as the public so that you can provide feedback so we can make it a better product at the end of the day, and to inform Chris so he can make the best informed decision that he can make on the ground. And whatever comes out of it politically, we have no control over that. But thank you for your question. I think we might want to break up and give you all plenty of time to go around to the resource tables. You may have heard when you first walked in that Barstow Memorial School they've been gracious enough to let us use this beautiful facility that they have here. They've asked us to try and stay off the basketball court as much as possible in the middle, and that's why we have the table set up on the outside perimeter of the room with the resource specialist facing towards the perimeter. So I know it's going to be a little bit crowded. We're just trying to be conscientious of the Barstow School's wishes. It's not like you're going to it's not like we're going to drag you off the middle of the court if you get in the middle, but try and stay off of it. Thank you.
Frost lasts longer on the ground.
I feel we're pretty fortunate to have good long stuff to do in the dry set. I know we were in some of the dry area.
And then how how I look at it is I always try to look at fire and the way climate ecology is we're trending towards getting drier and maybe a little bit longer, not drier period. So I like to try to look at my side of the house, the fire ecology of it. It's like, okay, what would happen if we have a real years of drought? Like what would that look like for fire?
What responsibility do others have that move the tops of trees and leaves, stuff they don't take? Are they responsible for not having it built up so you form so you didn't get any crowd fires? Or do they have a way they have to leave it where it's not going to promote
So that's going to be the timber side of the table. So when they set up their prescriptions for going into logging, they'll actually have detailed stuff. It's like you can only leave so many tons per acre. It can only be so deep from the ground. Or maybe they're going to say you have to take it off. Maybe they're going to say you have to come back through and chip it up. I'm not sure what their prescriptions will be or where they're going to be on the land.
They're monitored.
They are monitored. Yep, and they're held to that standard. We have people to go out and inspect the trees.
Pretty cool.
One of the chemicals that we use, it's actually EU is banning it from December 15, 2023 this year. Because it does have toxic and product right and potentially carcinogen. They're not saying anything, but it kind of is. So is there concern about that when you're putting it on trees? Concern like the part of this is
I would prefer to talk about like our proposed action and answer questions about it. Our bond is actually our design specialist. So if you have a question about like safety, just like I'm not going to sign up here on Mary Beth down there, she just does that.
Oh, that's a good question. Jay at the end of the NEPA table may have some extra copies, and then depending on how long you want to hang out here tonight, you may be able to take this home as a door prize. Yeah. Okay.
Compatible with this map or another map layer?
That's a good question. Let me just make
So
sure.
You're doing a great job of saying, this is where we want to fan and the methods and all that.
Make sure
but if I wanted to put that on top of this, the way that like the culverts map and the dams and all this
I don't think any of them are safe. I think they all have to.
Just making sure I know what's in this table before you start. This looks like it's mostly timber related.
Yeah.
So this would be more related to the map that's on that table, because they would have sort of the proposed timber treatment areas. Yeah. Yeah, and that will be a different map with different things highlighted on it. And again, that same basic.
So if you're looking for that temporary roads, if you're utilized Silverstein Trail or any old existing templates, then those are shown on. Yeah, those would be a question for Jay. Yes. Probably still clear around on that.
You know, he would. And then his would still be going.
Oh, yeah.
Take the thing out, put it back
I mean, Joe comes from Livingston.
Going up to the lane right now.
What's that? You know, that was all way different.
Guys all tapped out, ready?
How's that? The impact of that? Yeah. I saw your video yesterday. So there's no logging anywhere near your I did drive out there. I remember looking. So this whole side is fairly smooth.
Yes.
Jimmy, I couldn't make it.
Come right by him.
But
He owns the
I think
campus.
for our course,
And you turn left and come down to my house.
it's diverse.
I was a camp taker for South You want to go even further back. Further back, you don't even want to get to the brook. And there's trails that come right out on South Pond Road.
Is he worried about his property?
So this coming down. That's the one that closes off.
That's the one that goes back down towards 100. okay. Yeah, okay, so that's, that's right. That little white thing is cancer. So this trail is, yeah, it used to be a lot, and a couple landings up here, way back. Probably back when you were in college. Actually, I remember the Dale Merrill logging. This is close by. I've talked to
They would use the existing, and I would have to check with
Yeah, it is very small.
Well, what it is, the numbers blend in. Like even on this map, they look like they're blending.
I don't think we printed enough to pass it around and maybe over.
Well, you can ask me whatever. But if it's something
Ask
that
whatever.
I can't answer, I'm just going to tell you that you can write a comment and then I can get back with you. So, yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Because isn't this the way that the Abenaki used to control invasive plants?
Yeah, yep, they use, so historically fire's been used to benefit wildlife or to benefit, either invasive species or to reinvigorate like blueberries and stuff like that. So historically they've used it in the oak stands to regenerate. And it helps the acorn crop germinate into the ground. It helps get rid of that, the shade tolerant mid-story species that's already growing that is prohibiting that new growth of oak from coming up. So that's the main purpose of using fire within this project area, is to support the timber program and oak regeneration, which benefits wildlife. Bear, they like a short older story of timber to go through browse through. Deer like the acorn, they like to go and browse on that fire. It benefits a lot of different fire is just a tool to help them achieve their activities.
So when you recording buckthorn, what other invasive species?
That's not the intent of fire in this project area.
Would that be a good way? A way to do it?
In other areas, yes. In this project, it's not the intent of fire use. It might be a side product of it if it's present in the area, but that's not the intent.
It's like an easy way to get rid of buckthorn.
Fire is used for a lot of different things.
As long as you have California.
I don't want to talk about California or anything else on the Southwest.
So generally, if it's in one area, like environmental justice, or not,
Yeah.
we have to listen to some circumstances you have to find areas to this.
Right.
We're going to do everything to reach
Living down here? Yeah.
So, yeah, no, the guidance for Somerset Hospitality. It's not like we estimated how much it was.
Absolutely. But I became the expert on the two trips.
Baseline's not quantitative, that's quantitative.
Okay, the baseline is quantitative.
That's disclosure for Somerset quantitative. We're talking about telephone gap. We're hoping for it to be quantitative. I'm just telling you what we did 4 years ago.
So when I go to Somerset, I won't be shocked when I see this nice flowing language.
Yeah, look at you go on our website and look up Somerset and you get that.
I mean, I think somewhere some people average 2 tons of carbon is sequestered. But that kind of number being that baseline that was their goal. Do you remember, did they talk about it?
It's based on forest inventory and analysis plots. So there's one plot. This is done nationally Forest Service, they measure forested plots. We're not, depending on what this is. And it's a way for the Forest Service to assess what's going on nationally as far as the forested area. These are called forest inventory analysis plans. They're all over the place. They're all across the country, including in Vermont.
You said that baseline is
It's based on that.
Green Mountain.
Right, no, I know. But those plots are on the Green Mountain National Forest. So there's one plot for every 6,000 acres. So you can start to see how the data starts to be, it's not really exact. It's our best guess. So you got one plot every 6,000 acres, the forest is 4,000 acres. So you do that. So there's like,
Yes, so
you cut
which is, if I were to go to that, NAICS stands for what? National, what is it?
FIA. What are you asking?
Well, the group that's going to be doing
the Office of Sustainability and Climate. The Office of Sustainability and Climate. They're out of our Washington office, staffed under environmental management coordination staff. They're scientists.
But I thought you were saying earlier, she gave me the word NIACS.
NIACS is the Northern Institute of Climate Science.
And I thought they were
both. Both. They work together.
Oh, okay.
They work together.
So just to read about the methodology, which website is suggested? Should I just go to some of
The best methodology would be to go to the office.
It's like when they actually reach out and talk about it.
Okay. In regards for temporary roads, which is like so-called he does the planning and whatnot. The temporary roads, I'm translating engineer, we propose access on the temporary roads. I'm not proposing any construction. But in regards to temporary roads, that would be based off of access and agreement with the purchaser or the person that may be doing the logging. And a lot of times they could say this is a proposed action, but it's
So that's my problem.
okay, so yeah, so they're proposing up on their landing in their existing.
Yeah, there is.
So that would be, so I believe like once you get to that point, James, you have to verify with James. I believe the purchaser who buys the sale during pre-planning of the ticket, they go out to lay it out. So we're trying to contact the purchaser and say, hey, can I use your driveway? And then you say, oh yeah, you have to. But in regards to that, I think
So the loggers might say, oh, we're just going to go around.
oh yeah, or you're like, oh well, that guy, you really don't want us going over, and we have no way to do it.
No, I mean,
what else can we do something over here? I don't. Yeah, I was just. It's always about agreement, and if it's something that the purchaser wants to use it, and he needs to. Culvert's going to give it. You may replace that in a car, and that would be. Same thing happens, say, Upper Michigan roads.
Yep.
The first 3 miles are the town of Rochester, 6 miles Chittenden, and that's so we have jurisdiction and maintenance ability on our existing road, but we don't have jurisdiction to do construction in the county. So if the logger wants to call on our road, we can work with them, and but if they need to do something on the town road, we have to work with the town. Yeah, it's and it all depends on the condition, and some towns they require, oh, we got to do that, but that's all based on. So there's no permanent road over there, so like I'm not.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. I don't have a problem at all. I just finished logging my property.
Okay, but yeah, it would be, you said, okay.
Standard protection mentioned site-specific protection to try to make sure that we are doing something out on the landscape that we minimize or eliminate the erosion in the downstream environment.
Water temperature
Yeah. Yes, I'd like to go there. Yeah, it's so accessible. It's really, it is pleasant. Yeah, and that's, like I said, I mean, that's something we normally consider, but specific to that, like you said, mentioning the historic problems there, that's something we try to make sure we account for.
That's getting worse as the climate warms up and the temperature of the water goes up.
Yeah, great point. And then not brushing it off, but that's one of those things that either in written comment or online, just to make sure it's like fully documented. We like to say on our side of the street that if it isn't written down, it didn't happen, sort of thing. And so that's why we're here tonight with just lots of people giving us comments that didn't want us to worry about. They didn't write everything down, potentially they're wrong. So that's
How would I get documentation about the water
so it would probably be part of environmental conservation, so DEC, which is part of the Agency of Natural Resources of the state. They would probably be the most likely to have those records. And you can actually check online pretty easily. There was the Vermont A&R Atlas. Are you familiar with that one? So A&R is the Agency of Natural Resources. So yeah, Atlas is basically an online mapping tool, and they have a whole suite of things that you can turn on there. From parcel boundaries to storm drains in the cities, but then they also have things like water quality and watershed health. So I think you can look at culverts that don't allow for fish passage, but then they also track where they've done water quality monitoring in the past. And it might be just chemical water quality. They might have looked at the bugs and the vertebrates to get a sense of water quality. They might do turbidity,